Hello guys and welcome back to the ultimate Hattrick tutorial. This time we are going to speak about the 4-4-2, a really interesting lineup that could be an alternative to the 3-5-2. Depends on the situation, on your players and also the opponents, how is putting the players in the field. But let's start from the main concept, the difference between the 4-4-2 and the 3-5-2. The 3-5-2 is focusing on gain action through the midfield. More playmaking you have, more midfield you have, more action you have. Normal action. Meanwhile, the 4-4-2 is not just focusing on the midfield and playmaking skill, because for sure you need to have a quite good level of midfield, because you need to gain normal action. But on top of that, thanks to the 4 defenders, you will have a better defense, you will have a better counter-attack tactic, and therefore your action won't be just made through normal action, but also through counter-attack. Therefore, it is a good balance between defense and midfield. That trade-off will generate to you specific action that your attack need to convert. Depending on your opponent, if the opponent will have less or more attack, will be better playing 3-5-2 or 4-4-2. Also depending on the level of playmaking on your players, on the level of defense, winger and attack ratings. But the main concept is how you generate the action in just normal way with the 3-5-2 and in a normal way plus counter-attack with the 4-4-2. Now, let's start to deeply analyze the main pillars of the 4-4-2. First information, the 4-4-2 is the second most played lineup in the game, with around 15-20%. I have to say, this data is referring to the Italian Championship in general, but I think that more or less this info could be aligned to all the competition in the game. On top of that, as I was saying before, action, the main concept of the 4-4-2 is that the action you can gain the action through the normal action, and mainly you have the 4 midfielders that help you to gain a good level of midfield that will provide to you normal action, and on top of that you will have the counter attack. Therefore your defense compared to the attack of the opponents and the tactic level will be able to do also counter attack. The combo of them will give to you quite enough action to manage the game and try to convert thanks to the forwards. Also imagine that the forwards, if you play 4-4-2, and also depending really the values of your team compared to the opponents, but compared to the 3-5-2, you are not focusing so much in the midfield, therefore maybe you will have more offensive skill. What does it mean? That maybe your wingers will have more winger skill than playmaking, maybe your forwards will have more scoring, passing, winger skill and less playmaking, and in general you will be able to provide to your team more offensive ratings, and on top of that your defenders could have more defending compared to have inside them a lot of playmaking that maybe the 3-5-2 requires. Therefore you can have players built in a different way compared to the 3-5-2, with less playmaking and more defense, scoring, winger. I don't know if you follow what I mean. On top of that, comparing to the 3-5-2, at the end, what is happening with the 4-4-2? We are moving the values from the midfield, so the playmaking, to the defense, adding one defender. In general, if you think about a 4-4-2, at the end the concept is like a 3-5-2, because the attack ratings more or less will be the same. You will have average 3 sides, quite good, but more or less similar to a 3-5-2. At the end you have just 2 forwards. But you are moving the values in the midfield, in the defense. And the trade-off is just, you are able to improve in a good way the defense, you are able to have a good level of counter-attack tactic to generate the counter-attack. Just in this way, your 4-4-2 will be competitive, maybe more than the 3-5-2. But this really depends on the player that you have in the team and also the opponents. Because also the 3-5-2, depending which lineup is facing, is more competitive than the 4-4-2, etc. So depends on the situation. But in general, this is the main concept. Now, this difference between the 3-5-2, the 4-4-2, the skill that you need depending on the lineup, you saw in the previous video the skills that you need in the 3-5-2. Now let's see what you need for the 4-4-2. Here we are with the classic lineup simulator. As always, let's take the magic goalkeeper and let's put there, and we build our wall. Now let's speak about the defenders. Already we'll see some difference. Firstly, we go already 18 defending. If you are playing 4-4-2, you need defending because you need to improve the defense rating to stop in a proper way the attack of your opponent and being able to convert in counter attack. Playmaking anyway is important because you need to have playmaking to create anyway normal action, because anyway the 4-4-2 without the normal action and without a good level of playmaking and midfield, you are not able to win, because if you don't have midfield, play 5-3-2. You need to have midfield in the 4-4-2. Is a good, really, you need to be able to create a good trade-off. So, and also playmaking and passing is important because this time you are playing counter-attack. So 9 and also 10 depends on the situation, but more passing you have, better is. For this reason, I was saying in the previous video that you need also in the 3-5-2 a little bit of passing, because if you are in the competitive phase and you are not training, so the 3-5-2 and the 4-4-2 can be used in a proper way. Meanwhile, if you are training playmaking, it's more difficult play 4-4-2. I understand, because you are missing one slot that could be trained at 100%. But anyway, I'm sharing with you lineup that can be used in a competitive phase when you are the training phase. Now you are not focusing mainly in the training, and on top of that, I can suggest this kind of lineup to players that maybe are training winger skill, because for example, who is training wingers can play both 3-5-2, both 4-4-2. Now, this is the central defender. The other one could be the same. So, more defense, the good level of playmaking and passing. Now, the wingbacks. If you remember in the previous episode, when we were seeing a wingback for 3-5-2, I was saying that the defending skill need to be at the same level of a winger to push the side attacks. In this case, you can also think to have 18 in defending, so prioritize the skill of defending and give a little bit less winger skill. Because anyway, the priority is also really stop the opponent. Ensure that you have a good level of defense that can create counter-attack. And passing, let's put 9. I'm really, I would say 10. Anyway, 9 and 10 depend really how much is stronger. I'm sharing really strong players. Also, if you have 17 is already enough. I'm just trying to show you the weight of the skill. In this case, could be more important, a little bit more defense than winger skill. The other one anyway could be like, let's create another wingback. Oops, sbagliato, sorry. Could be, but also could be a, let's do in this way. 15, 9 passing, and this could be the set pieces taker. Okay? Now let's go ahead. Winger, we can say, for me it could be also, I will create 2 wingers. One is playmaking 18, playmaking winger 18, 9 passing. That is the same of the 3-5-2. So it's competitive also because sometimes you can play also with the 4-4-2 with the winger toward middle. So, and anyway, the two primary skill is still the same. You are pushing the side attacks with winger skill, and you are supporting a midfield that is important for the 4-4-2 with playmaking. The defense is important. One winger could be similar like this, and I already, sorry, attack. The second one could be similar, but as I was showing the last video, maybe you can do also like this, because anyway you have counter attack. A winger skill, maybe also 17 is okay. Maybe you can put 10 defending, that will support you to defend in a better way. In this way, you defend better. Anyway, you have a good enough level of playmaking and winger. Let's put in this way. And now let's see the midfielders. So the midfielders, for me, if I was saying that the 3-5-2, let's make one as the 3-5-2. So 11 defending, 19 playmaking, 13 passing, 8 scoring, 7. But at the end, considering the fact that playmaking is important but also defending, you can do also 12, 18, passing a little bit more. So in this way you are reducing a little bit the push on playmaking, giving more defense, and you are keeping anyway a good level of playmaking to support the midfield, but splitting the values from a little bit of the last level of playmaking, giving to defending or passing, anyway supporting the defense or the attack ratings. As always, the target more or less are the same, but just take not the target skill only, but also the proportion. I won't be tired to say that. Now the forwards, 18 mandatory, 13, something like that. For me the forward need to be similar to the 3-5-2 anyway. Is really, as always, you can also at the end have a little bit less playmaking and give more passing. If you are not able to do a lot of winger, you push more passing. But this player is so amazing, you know. Proportion, remember, not only the target. This could be, you could have both the forwards like this. On top of that, you can have, this is important, for me the powerful still is important also in the 4-4-2. Firstly, because if you are using both 3-5-2 and 4-4-2, the PNF is important. On top of that, anyway, the 4-4-2 is generating normal action, therefore the PNF can generate the special event. Remember that if is an action coming from a counter attack, your powerful striker won't have any impact with these specialties. So this is important to know. Therefore, sometimes in the 4-4-2 you can play without the PNF, but for me can be used. Therefore, I'm putting like this, and I put you in the lineup. Obviously, you need to put. This is where is counter attack. Let's put home like the other example. Here we are. In this way you see, no, let's put in the like the other example. Okay, so in this way you can compare in the other video the values that we were seeing for the 3-5-2, and you can see already that the level of attack more or less is the same, because if I remember well, it was more or less 14-15. So you won't have a difference in the attack. Everything, as I was saying at the beginning of the video, is the concept of move the values from the midfield to the defense and create action through the counter-attack tactic. Let's put 1 second. Okay, we have 18. Obviously, if we put Echo with 10, let's see if, okay, 10, 10, 10, 10. You have magical. If you have also quick players, maybe you can arrive at 20. Let's see if we put, and also the simulate maybe in the with the fidelity, etc. Already you can, because 20 is, I think, with this player, with the fidelity, and with also the sub level, etc. I think you will be able to reach 20 in tactics in counter attack. Now there are other comments to say. For example, you can do also this kind of movements. You have this fantastic wingback as a set piece taker. You can also have do like this. Bravo. Despite being a central defender with a lot of playmaking, is like this. It is no, not like this. Like is another wingback with less winger skill. And for example, this player, no, sorry, let's do this. This is the set pieces taker, okay? You bought a set pieces taker with a normal level of playmaking, a normal level of winger skill, and a good level of passing. Meanwhile, Echo is a normal wingback. Maybe not stronger like Delta, but still competitive. What you can do? You can leverage. If you have problem, maybe you want just one central defender that you are using in the 3-5-2, and you want to have an hybrid solution, despite having two central defender with playmaking that cost you don't have the budget, etc. You could have a player hybrid that could stay in the bench during when you play 3-5-2. And so let's be realistic. So Echo, if he need to play also in the benchmark, is in the bench during the 3-5-2, we need to be weaker. So maybe it's mythical, winger, still passing. Passing is always important because give you flexibility to play or not to play counter attack. Winger like this, something like that. Okay, maybe it could be also the main mark, I don't know. Anyway, what I would like to say is the following. You have this. Echo is one moment in, so you were arriving from this. Let's think that here, let's put my midfielder, okay? He's a midfielder. Okay, you play like this, but you have problem, you have lost team spirit, etc. So you need to play 4-4-2. You remove one midfielder, and you are taking your defender from the bench that is like this. Okay, so it's not strong like your wingbacks. Delta is too much strong. Delta, where is Delta? Delta. Oh my god. Delta, I put 17 because really if you have 18, okay. Let's do like this. I quite okay like this. You are in this situation, okay? You have your wingback, your main wingback, and you have the other wingback that is the set pieces taker. What you can do? You can put your central defender here, and you can put the defender that is the hybrid one in this way. Considering the fact that is with winger skill, let's have a look at the obviously if you can have also a defensive coach could work, but just look at this. Now you put your wingback, remember 13.25, that is defending the middle, and you can put your central defender toward wing. At the end you are keeping the same level of side attacks, but look at the values in the defense, 21 and 20, despite you gained 21 is okay, but was not 20. So in this way you kept the same performance in central defense, the same performance in the side attack, but you improved the defense, the side defense, by 0.75. And this is the concept. If you have a little bit of winger. This winger skill, you know, you see, will help you to improve the ratings in the side attack. So this could be, and you will see when we'll see the example at the end of the series with a lot of examples, some 4-4-2 are played in this way. So you need to find solution, because sometimes you won't have the perfect players for each position, but thanks to this situation, this solution, you can do some improvements to your lineup. What I can say on top of that, there are other interesting things to share. Obviously you can play also like this, depends on your opponent, because if your opponent is weaker in defense, maybe these attacks are enough. Therefore improve the midfield by in this case alpha level is quite good. So really depends on the situation. You can also play if sometimes you can maybe sometimes you play 4-4-2, but you are not sure that your opponent will play 3-5-2. Maybe can play also counter attack. In this case, you need to improve also your attack ratings, because in this if you play 4-4-2 in general, you think to have less normal action. But if you face a counter attack, you will have higher midfield, therefore you will have the action, normal action, meanwhile your opponent will have the counter attack. So you need to ensure to have a good level of attack, because if not, your attack won't be enough. Anyway, it will be the same problem than the 3-5-2, because the 3-5-2 could have this kind of level of attack ratings. And in this way, let's think also here to let's show you. I have a player like this. For example, let's not okay, this one. Tack him with a little bit of winger can support you to you see, you have still enough to defend. You are losing a little bit of playmaking, so you are losing normal action, but you are pushing the side attack. So depending on where you expect that your opponent is weaker in terms of defense, you can attack and focus on that sides. So these are kind of repositioning that are common. You can see also sometimes you can play simply with the central inner midfielder offensive, but in general these are the main concept. All the others I think we can see directly with the example at the end of the series. Okay guys, I think for the moment it's enough. I gave you already a lot of inputs through the 3-5-2 and the 4-4-2. We are covering more or less the 70% of the matches, because 50% are playing with the 3-5-2, more or less 20% are playing with the 4-4-2. So you are starting to understand the main scenarios. Next video will be about the 2-5-3 that will is supporting to push more, to do all in, to attack, forgetting the defense, pushing the midfield and trying to destroy the defense of the opponents. At the end of the series, as I told more than once in this video, we will see the examples and you will deeply understand when you can use the 4-4-2. I had really nice matches this season with the 4-4-2, helped me a lot because I had injuries. I lost 2 key players for my midfield, so I was not able to be competitive and to play the classic 3-5-2 against the opponents. And thanks to the 4-4-2 and some repositioning, clever repositioning, let me say, I was able still to be competitive without buying players in the market that was maybe reducing the T-spirit, that were reducing at zero my budget, that is not so big. And I was competitive. And the 4-4-2 can be played for sure away, but not only away, but also at home. You have the bonus, so you breathe, because you have also the bonus, so more midfield, you gain normal action, and you can leverage on the offensive skill of your players, like the wingers that can play normal if you want, and maybe the opponent, when play away, is playing not so aggressive, he will play with less attack ratings, and therefore your defense of the 4-4-2 will be enough. You will have the good trade-off between playmaking and midfield level, so, and the counter attack, and you will have good attack ratings, because despite the 3-5-2, that if you have problems, you need to put the the winger toward middle, you put maybe the central defender offensive, so you are pushing the midfield, losing both defense and both attack ratings, because you are losing side attacks when you play with the winger toward middle. Why? Because you need to have the control of the match. Meanwhile, with the 4-4-2, if you know that you have the right trade-off of midfield counter-attack, your wingers can think to attack, being normal and being really supporting the side attacks. But you need to have the team around it, because obviously the problem is that you need to have wingers. You need to have the winger skill. This is important. You cannot have just central attack playing 4-4-2. You need to have the wingers that are running. I have to say, I have a bonus, and this is the bonus of the video. I said, and I truly believe in it, that to play a good 4-4-2 you need the wingers that support you also in the side attacks. But it's also true that I'm sharing players that are so strong that the 90-95% of the Hattrick users won't be able to collect, because they are so strong. Or at least I hope that more players will be able, thanks to this video and these informations. But at the end, right now, anyway, just the top serious player can have this kind of players. So, and anyway, it's true the fact that also in these teams like mine, you have problem on budget. You cannot have perfect condition everywhere. You need to do some trade-off depending on your budget. So what does it mean? That maybe you have just one winger, and you cannot have the following, or maybe is injured, but you cannot play a 4-4-2. Is not true, because you can find a way, and this player could be an example, because at the end this player, as I told you, is an hybrid player, and this player is 17. Is just the skill up is it happened a few weeks ago, so it's I'm saying 17 because also the proportion of the skill, even better if is 18 obviously. But this kind of players help you in different situations. If you put this player here as the winger, is doing his job. Why? Because firstly, this player is with more defense than a normal winger. Already 9 is already, maybe a winger could be 9-8 defending. So he's defending more. He's supporting more the central attack, thanks to passing skill, because 12 in passing is quite good for a winger. And is with a good level of playmaking, because it could be 16, 17, 18. Because at the end is a midfielder. On top of that, there is a little bit of winger skill. And it's working, because you are providing more midfield, you are defending more thanks to the 11 defense, you are losing one side, okay guys, but you are defending in a proper way, doing a good level of tactic, improving the midfield, because you can have let's do in this way. This guy, Foxtrot, I don't know how to call him, 18, winger we said 7, 12, also 12, and let's put, was so strong this player, I did put, no, stamina, form, let's, okay, a player like this is a midfielder at the end. But if you put there, you know, you are improving the defense, you have maybe better stats in the midfield that anyway give you normal action compared to play with two normal wingers, and you're improving the central attack. Okay, here I don't know why, because the sub levels. Let's do it this way. I want to see 14. You know, What I mean, I lost one attack, but maybe your opponent in that side of the defense will be weaker. Therefore, 10 is enough. But anyway, you are focusing on two sides, keeping a good level of playmaking and keeping a strong level of defense that will be supported by the counter-attack. So this kind of solution you need to think about. You need to have top specific players that are your core one, and some players that are hybrid, that can play in different situations, that can support you in specific maybe problematic situation for injuries or different opponents to help you to solve some issue and leverage on different kind of tactics. You know, I hope that this kind of topic are helping you. Guys, if you are seeing this skill, don't worry, you don't need to have this kind of skills. I will do a video, and maybe when I share this content is already check the walkthrough on my club. I want to do a video linked to the end of the season of season 91, I think 90 and 91, and I will share the target of my players, not all the players, at least my 5 core players that I did with my national team packs. You will see the real player. Okay, guys, I think it's enough. I say to you hello from here. I won't change the view, and see you in the next video that will speak about the 253. Thank you. Bye bye.